Let's talk Tanya for the 26th of Nisan. In yesterday's Tanya, we spoke about that to arrive at Yiras Hashem, the awe of God, we need to contemplate God's presence, God's omniscience, the fact that God is here and He has an eye that is watching me, an ear that is hearing everything that I say. And if I contemplate this long enough and deeply enough, that will lead me to a Yiras Hashem, to an awe and reverence for God. We ended off the Tanya asking, but these metaphors that we're using over here, eyes and ears, after all, God is non-corporeal. That's one of the basics of Judaism. One of our foundational beliefs is that God doesn't have a body or any bodily features whatsoever. So God doesn't have eyes. He doesn't have ears. So what does this mean? So Alter Rebbe says, actually, to the contrary, understanding that God doesn't have eyes or ears intensifies my appreciation for God's knowledge of what's going on and for God's omniscience, the fact that He's present everywhere. How was that? When it comes to knowledge, when it comes to human knowledge, there are two different types of human knowledge. There are certain things that I become aware of, but these are things that are outside of me. Events that I observe, or that's something that I pick up through my senses. And then there are certain things that I know not because they are outside of me and I sense them in any which way, but I know them because of self-knowledge. So for example, if my toe is hurting, I know that not because someone told me or not because I see it, but because I'm aware of myself. So I'm aware that my toe hurts. If I am cold, I don't need anyone to tell me about it. Again, I'm aware of that because of my self-knowledge. If we're to understand that actually we are simply extensions of God, not only us, but everything around us and all of creation, and everything at every single moment is being recreated by God and receiving its energy from God, and ultimately its existence is being granted to it at every moment by God. If that's the case, then God is aware of everything that's going on, not because He has eyes or ears. Eyes or ears symbolize this idea of being aware of something outside of you, but God knows everything that's going on by virtue of the fact that He is aware of Himself. If He is aware of Himself and His creative powers, then He is aware of everything that is being created at every moment. Now that's a pretty awesome awareness, and that's a pretty all-encompassing awareness. Adding that to the contemplation actually allows us to arrive at an even greater yira, a greater awe for God, who is aware of everything that happens simply because He is aware of Himself. So this is the contemplation that we need to have. We need to be thinking about God's awareness of everything that we are doing, God's expectations of us. But we still have two questions. Number one, how often do I need to engage in this type of contemplation? That's number one. Number two, I need to contemplate, but what is a reasonable expectation for how much or how great a feeling of awe I have to create within myself? Because you always have to have some sort of picture of what success looks like. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for frustration. And those two questions we will address, God willing, in tomorrow's Tanya.